we are back live. I know, I can't believe it. We're live, finally. I'm so excited. Akila Davis is back with us, and she is our motivation mastery mentor. And we are going to be going over the third cluster. Since we've done 1 and 2, we have to do 3, right, guys? And that is going to be the achievement cluster. I'm so excited about this conversation. I'm so excited to see her. She is the expert in motivational maps. She is what you guys have been waiting for. I love the comments I've been reading and also the DMs that people are sending about how excited they are about motivational maps and how much they're learning. This is super exciting. So without further ado, let's bring Akila out.
Thank you very, very much, Marie. And I would like to introduce you to everyone as well. This is our marvelous Marie, who is not only our producer, but she is also a mapper. And having you here is always the best thing because you ask such brilliant questions.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's good to see you. I love that color on you. I didn't say that earlier when we were in the green room, but
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Great color.
But you do not use it when you have a green screen.
Fair. You would blend in. That's a good point.
I would be a talking head.
Yes, you would be a talking head. That would be amusing, but probably not what we need to do. So I'd love to begin with a really quick recap. So we did the growth cluster and we also did the relationship cluster the last times we were together. And so before we jump into the achievement cluster, if you could give us a really quick, high-level recap of those two, and then I'd love to jump into the achievement.
Absolutely. Okay. What we call this, when we're looking at people's maps, we call this the RAG score. And RAG means relationship, achievement, and growth. And when we talked about the relationship, just to give you that quick recap you asked for, relationship is all about feelings. It's related to the heart and it's related to the past. Okay. And it's very much more the people in that cluster tends to be more conservative. They don't like surprises. They are more likely to build relationships. That is what's important to them. That's why it's called a relationship cluster, of course.
Yeah.
So they are very people-oriented and past-oriented. Then we talked about the growth cluster. And the growth cluster is all about the gut. That would be the organ that's related to. And there's intuition. They tend to live in the future. So they are more visionary, more planning. They have ideas about what things should look like and be and improvements. And of course, for that group who are looking at, basically they're looking at change, they are very, very change friendly, unlike our relationship friends. And they are how shall I put this? They move fast, they make quick decisions, everything about them is fast. Whereas the relationship, everything about them tends to be much a slower pace. Mm-hmm. So today we're going into the achievement growth, which is in between those two. Remember I said RAG?
Yeah.
Relationship, achievement, growth. It's between the two. It doesn't mean that they are wishy-washy. And one other thing I want to stress again is that when I'm talking about these clusters can vary and do very much. I'm talking about what we call a pure cluster, where all three of your top 3 motivators, which is responsible for 60 to 70% of your unconscious decisions and actions, are all in the same group. So for example, if we look at relationship, the top 3, the 3 that are in relationship would be defender, which is all about safety and security, friend, which is all about belonging, and the star, which is all about being the best they can be.
Recognition. Yeah.
In the growth cluster, we talk about the creator, which is about being at the cutting edge, making things better, things like that. We talk about the spirit, And the spirit is about freedom and the ability to see the big picture and then fit what you're doing into it. And they are also very visionary. And the third one was a searcher, people who want to make a difference. They want to do something that they feel that they're making a contribution. And if you remember, one of the things I said there, a lot of people, when they think about searcher, they think, oh, maybe I have to save the world or I have to do something like that. No, the searcher can be anything as long as you feel you're making a contribution. It can be to a person, it can be to animals, it could be to the planet, it could be anything. And you can be satisfied that you're making a contribution if you're a searcher, is one of your top motivators.
Mhm.
So now let's talk about the achievers or the achievement clusters. And I say achievers because their achievement cluster, if you have all three, which is the director, who is very much a part of power and control. Okay. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because they are also, well, as you know, there is no good or bad motivators. And there's people who need to be in control. Um, And one of the things about them is that they're also responsible.
Mm.
Okay? And we'll get more deeper into that in a little bit later. The second is builder. The third is expert. The builder is about lifestyle. And the third is the expert who likes to build mastery and expertise in their area of interest. So when we look at that cluster, they are in the here and now. What the organ that is most important to them is the head. They are the thinkers. They are logical. They analyze. Okay? And you can see how the three clusters really differ when we look at that. So, as a group, they tend to be more control, building wealth or lifestyle, and mastery are what they would tend to focus on. And if you have all three of those, it makes you into something very unique. Because imagine having those three things driving your behaviors. But the majority of people, and you remember I said that motivational maps, you can have well over 1.5 million combinations. Unique
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Yes. And this is the reason why. Because very few people, or I should say not very few, but people have three as their top three, that three of the same that would make up the cluster, but that's not as common as you would think. Quite often they would have maybe two relationship and one of the other clusters, or two achievement cluster and one else, or two of the growth and one else, or one of each.
Mhm.
And those are really, really interesting. And then that's not the only thing. It depends on the degree or the number that goes with that. Because the number can go anywhere from 0 to 100. Never seen anything greater than 55 in any one cluster. But what that means is the three clusters put together is representing 100% of your brain's energy. Okay? And when we look at your number in all of the clusters, they should add up to 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So if your dominant cluster is, let's say your dominant cluster is achievement, which is what we're talking about today, of course, it's 40, that leaves you 60% to be divided between the other two. And that has an impact on how you look at relationships, on how you look at growth. A good example would be if you have 40% achievement and you have 30%, or let's say you have 32% in relationships, that leaves you, what, 28% for growth? How that impacts you is that because you are so concerned about the here and now and getting things done, you may tend to not look at keeping yourself educated and up to date in your field. And if you don't do that, then you may notice that time will pass you by and you become irrelevant. So it's really important that you know these things. On the other hand, if you had 40% in achievement and you had 35% in growth, let's say you had 40% in growth because growth is important to you in this case, that leaves you only 20% in your relationship. So what that's telling you is 80% of your energies are focused on the here and now and the future. So your relationships are being neglected, more than likely being neglected. And I'm not talking about your very important relationships, but depending on how high that is, it could be. It could be networking, business relationships, things like that. And of course, in order to achieve anything, we need relationships, right? And
Yes.
that's what the achievement cluster is all about. As a matter of fact, achievement motivated individuals, they don't climb mountains because they're there. They climb it because they want to get to the summit and plant their flag. Okay, getting things done is extremely important to them. Checking things off, they get deep satisfaction from that. Checking things off. I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. Okay, they are so energetic about getting their goals. And
So that's really, oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say, Marie, it's one of the things I was thinking about this morning. I said, from the outside, you might present to people as an achievement cluster dominant because you have goals, you're working at it, you're just in there. And while that's true, it's your second cluster, not your first, because your
Yes.
first is the growth cluster. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
never try to guess someone's motivators from how they're looking because it's virtually impossible.
Yeah,
No.
that actually, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of times when people take assessments, all different types of assessment, there's a tendency to pigeonhole people into categories or make assumptions about what they are based on, what they sort of present as. And I think it's a really excellent point to say when someone is very driven in achieving their goals, that doesn't necessarily mean that their dominant cluster is achievement. They could have another dominant cluster. This could be the second. And I really loved what you said to us in the very beginning of the series when we talked about what motivation is. And you talked about it being energy. And also, it's very situational. Like the circumstances that a person is in will also contribute to what is motivating them at this time. And so that's also a very important point. One of the things that you've talked about to when we're in class with you or just in general conversation is really how we can work as a team. How does this, knowing these three clusters and knowing that we have people on our teams that have all the different variations of the motivational maps and those clusters, how does that help us?
Once we understand ourselves, it opens up this idea that other people have certain needs that I may not be able to relate to, but I know what my needs are, and if I can tell that to people and they can help me to fulfill those needs, then I can do the same to them. And motivational map gives us a language to discuss that. Like if I say to you, Marie, one of my top motivators is, or let's talk about clusters. One of my top cluster is growth. So here's what this means. I've just met you at this conference. I'd love to stay in touch with you. But because I am such a high growth and high achievement, relationships tends to fall by the way. So if you too would like to keep in touch, would you kindly send me an email and I promise I will respond and we can keep that. And if you don't hear from me for a month, go, oh yeah, Akila said, because it's not because I'm not thinking of you. It's because I am so focused on the here and now and the future. I forgot that this was important to me as well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know, some of my longest relationships now for people I've met at conferences and things are based on that conversation.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I
Because,
love that example because it really illustrates the fact that if relationship is a lower motivator, that cluster happens to be a lower motivator for me, that I may not always put the energy, going back to what motivation is, which is the
Mhm.
energy. I'm not putting the energy into that. So it doesn't mean I don't care about that. It's just that we have our capacity is limited as human beings. And so if my energy is really focused on the future or the present, I'm not putting a lot of energy on the past. And so that will sometimes fall to the wayside. So there's that conscious effort now that I have awareness that I need to
Mhm.
make. And then also that effort that other people recognizing where my motivators are can kind of give a little nudge like, oh, Akila, don't
Yeah.
forget me. I'm over here.
And that's how it works in the workplace as well. Like,
Mhm.
you know, one of the things we do after we've done a motivational survey is we do a workshop to help them understand each other's motivators and what it means. Because I keep coming back to this because to me it is so important. People are not choosing the way they act. Most of the time, they're reacting to their motivators. And that to me is another reason why that self awareness is so important. Because once you're aware, you can now consciously make changes. And a good example, let's talk about the director. The director is, as I said, power and control and responsibility. And part of that responsibility, let's say you have a high director in your team and they think, okay, a high director is your manager. Okay. And they don't delegate, they don't develop you. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't know. All they feel is, I don't think that person will do a good a job as me, and this work is an extension of who I am. So they don't even think of delegating. If they understand this to be an issue, they could take a couple of classes on delegating. They will then be able to develop and empower the people who work for them and gain more trust in their abilities. Because one of the biggest things with the achievement cluster is that they are very prone to burnout because they take everything on themselves. Okay. So if they can have
Yeah.
other people in the team to help them, it allows them to be a true manager, not a manager worker.
Hmm.
You know,
That's a really great point about that self-awareness piece. So
yeah.
what we're saying to people is that you're not stuck in like, oh, I'm a director, like my highest motivator is director, so therefore I'm motivated to do this and I can't change. It's the exact opposite. It's
Yep.
the awareness of this is what drives me. Being responsible, being in control is the driver, but I now as the real driver and not the invisible driver, which I love that imagery that you have there. I need to take control of that, and pardon the pun, and really learn how to delegate, right? How to be able to have other people be part of the experience.
And in doing that, you are performing an extremely important part of your function as a leader. And
Right.
that is to develop and empower the people below you.
Absolutely. I love that example. So now let's say I'm a builder. That's
Mhm.
my highest motivator. So we
Yes.
talked about the director. So let's talk a little bit about the builder. What drives me as a builder?
Material things, lifestyle.
Mhm.
And money is a big part of that because without the money, you can't have the lifestyle that you want.
Right.
Um, I used to, you know, in the work that we do, money is considered part of the biggest driver for the builder. But in working with people, I found that there were a lot of people who were making, $500,000 or more, and they were dissatisfied with their builder.
Mm.
And the conversation was not, it wasn't the money. It was, we come back to the here and now. They were so into what they were doing. They didn't have the time to enjoy that money, to spend it the way they wanted to with their families, etc., etc. So that's why I focus on the lifestyle. It's not just about money. Yes, you've got the great big house, you've got the 2 cars, you've got a holiday place in Costa Rica, but if you aren't able to use it and enjoy it, you'll be dissatisfied with it. So
Yeah,
again,
that's good.
yeah. So you start to look at balancing. It's for them. At first, they may think that it's wealth, but once they build it up, how many times have you heard about very wealthy people who sit down one day and say, "What am I doing? Did I put my ladder on the wrong wall? This
Mhm.
isn't making me happy."
Mhm.
Well, it would have made them happy if they had balance to enjoy it. But once they realize that and that they're still driven by these 3 motivators, then they have the option to say, you know what? I am going to make sure one of my goals is to make sure I have enough time to enjoy this the way I want to. And once
And
they
you
put that on their goals list, they will do it.
you said that, and it brought me to a thought that I think
Mhm.
is really interesting, is that because the achievement cluster is really about the present,
Mhm.
it's very logical that I would be dissatisfied if I'm not able to enjoy the lifestyle in the present. So
Mhm.
it's such an interesting sort of situation where I'm very driven to build this wealth that will help me have the lifestyle. But in that achievement cluster, which is really focused on the present, if you're not enjoying the lifestyle in the present, it's very clear to see you could be very dissatisfied with your life because you're not living it right
No,
now. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
to say to them, if you're a financial advisor and you say to them, like, if you put this away, you will have this incredible retirement lifestyle. And they're thinking, yeah, but that's 20, 30, 40 years away if I want to stop working. And I
Mhm.
don't feel I want to stop working right now. You know? So that will not give them a good reason to do that. What you may want to say to them is, if we put this money here and it will produce so much of a return for you, you can take time off every year to do the things you want to do without impacting your wealth, because we're looking at the growth of an average of this much. That will be more satisfying to them.
It's funny. As you were talking again, I had an image of Mark Cuban. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Cuban.
Yes.
He's a very wealthy entrepreneur, and I was thinking about it. And on the surface of it, because he's very wealthy and he's very driven, you would assume like, oh, his top motivator is a builder because he's building this wealth and he has this lifestyle. But I was just thinking about an interview that he had done a while back with Jon Stewart on the Daily Show.
Mhm.
And he is very future focused. And so it's very interesting when people struggle with money mindset, that the reality can be is that you can be in a growth cluster, which is future focused and very what we would call on Maslow's hierarchy of need, altruistic,
Mhm.
but yet also build wealth and not necessarily have wealth, the builder, as your top motivator, but
Yeah,
really it's building that for the future, for a
exactly.
higher purpose. So it's very interesting when you sort of begin to connect those dots,
Well, it's really interesting because I would be very interested in doing Mark Cuban's motivational map,
right?
because from what I see of him, he seems to be very balanced. His family means a lot to him, his
Yes.
relationships there. And then, of course, he's an achiever. He does
Hmm.
things. And he has a vision for the future that you
Yeah.
said is altruistic, and he's a creator and things like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I would love to do somebody like him.
All right. We've put it out in the universe. Mark, if you are watching this, you need to get a motivational map done by Akila. So I'm putting it out there. You never know. Okay, so now let's talk a little. So we've talked about the director. We've talked a little bit about the builder. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the expert. Tell me a little. So if expert is my top motivator, what does that mean?
Well, it's interesting that the expert is part of that achievement cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they put their energy into developing their expertise. And the one thing that is somewhat different is that they do not acquire their knowledge and expertise for control of other people or to make themselves have a higher status.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely love to share that knowledge with others. They love going to conferences. They love talking to other experts, people who understand them, and then they can get really meaty conversations going on.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is they're very precise, and they don't like to let other people down. They make absolutely fantastic coaches, academics, anything where somebody needs their information, they'll be right in there helping as best as they can. And I find them fascinating. I find them, I find them very, very admirable as well, because of course that fits with my motivational needs. I tend to relate more to people who are more, as you said earlier, altruistic, who wants to do things because it is going to be of benefit to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they are a doer. Will go through, and they're lifelong learners. They will never stop learning because, or until their motivations change. Because there's other people who will get to acquire the amount of knowledge they feel they need, and then their expert may drop down to not a motivator because now they have enough knowledge to understand what they need to know, and they have no problems calling on experts at a later date if they need them for input.
I love that, because that really illustrates the point of this assessment and understanding your motivational map, is that it is very situational. And I think with the expert being a great example of, once I feel like I've hit that level of mastery and that I'm sharing that mastery, my motivational and my energy, my motivation will change. I might be motivated by something else, and that motivator might go down a bit in terms of the placement in what's motivating me. I also love the fact that all 9 motivators live within us.
Mm-hmm.
It is the degree in which they live within us and the degree of energy that we give to those is really what makes the difference and creates the 1.5 million variances in the world. And I'm sure that number grows as more and more people take the motivational maps. As we're closing out the achievement cluster, what's the one thing that you'd like to share with people that might be just a nugget of knowledge around this cluster?
There's 2 things. Okay. One, remember I said I was talking about the pure cluster here?
Yes.
That they have all 3?
Yes.
Well, when you're dominated, if your profile has all 3 of those, you don't just want to be a seat at the table. You want to build a table, you want to own the table, and be recognized as the table's expert.
There you go. I love that. On a more serious, own the table and be recognized as the expert at the table. Okay, so that was one. What's the second one? What's the second?
This one is more practical.
Okay.
For the achievement cluster, it's not about being It's not about being busy. It's about being effective. Okay. And these individuals do not count the hours worked. They count what they have achieved, the goals achieved, things done. And that's important. And that's one of the reasons why you have so many managers who falls into this cluster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Akilah, this, as usual, has been a fascinating conversation that I wish we could go on and on and on and talk about more and more things. So, one, we're still doing the raffle. So,
Yes.
In the link that I will put on this conversation, fill out the Google form, and Akilah will bless you with a motivational map, a coaching session. It is a blessing. And a debrief and a coaching session is what you will get with Akilah that will be worth its weight in gold. Absolutely. Also, too, there is a summer class, which we will post information about the summer class. If you, as you've been watching this series, are getting excited and you're just like, I want to learn more about this. I want to know more about this. Akilah is providing a class this summer, and so we will get you that information, and you can also fill out the form if you just want information about the summer class. Next week, Akilah, we're going to have some more motivational map practitioners talk about how they use motivational maps in their work. So we're going to talk to them. And then in a few weeks, so Akilah doesn't know this, so I'm kind of putting her in a corner on air. We'll see how this goes. In a few weeks, I would love to come back and really kind of delve into a little bit more one-on-one with you on motivational maps, and really more in the team realm. A little bit more conversation around teams. I don't want you to give away all the juicy secrets about teams, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about really the effectiveness of using motivational maps with your teams, really as a manager, what I can learn from understanding my teams, the team's dynamic, as well as the individuals on the team. So are you game for that?
Well, I am, and here's something you didn't know because we hadn't talked about this for a while, but it leads right into this. I think this is a good forum to ask some of those questions. We only have 30 minutes.
Yes.
So what I had been planning to do, and I was going to talk to you about, is I will be doing a webinar for leaders who wants to understand more about it, how it can help them and their teams. And then I'll be doing one for CEOs as a demonstration as how it can help them to understand what's going on in their companies, how they can see what needs to be maybe adjusted a little bit or fixed, and where departments or areas that are not in sync with the company values. I always joke that if Enron had motivational maps, they would have noticed the accounting department was more of an innovative department, not the relationship one it should have been, and it could have avoided the problems.
Yeah, that's one. All right, I love this. I absolutely love this. So I will make sure to post all of that information for everyone so that you can register for the webinars if you are interested in the webinars. We will be back next Wednesday with another motivational map. We'll be talking to a practitioner, so you'll get more of that information. So pay attention to the postings on that. And Akilah, I just want to thank you again for the time today. We went a little over time, but it was totally worth it. Thank you for the time. Really appreciate it. And so we're going to...
And thank you, Marie, for your questions. You always ask such interesting questions, so thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. So see you all next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.